Hey guys, how's it going? So, I'm on holiday right now. Like, as in, not like I'm on holiday right now as I'm like filming this. Obviously, I don't have holidays with this man over here.
Oh, sorry.
We should go on holiday. We should go on holiday.
Baldy's
Anyway, Baldy's what?
Baldy's on tour.
Baldy's on tour. Yeah, I'm up for that. Anyway, but yeah, I'm on holiday right now, so as in like I'm with my family. And so I didn't want to miss a week and not upload anything, so I thought I'd share something with you guys that I really enjoyed. I thought it was really special. In a nutshell, just over a year ago, Victor Wooten swung by SBL Towers to hang out and chat all things bass, and we caught the entire thing on camera and recorded the interview for you guys. Obviously, Victor Wooten is a legend in his own lifetime, and I think it's a really, really valuable interview. I think he dropped some really, really amazing bits of knowledge that I think you guys are going to learn a lot from. And yeah, so here is the interview with Victor Wooten. And remember, if you are an Academy member, you can also watch I think we've got like over 70 other interviews on the site that you can watch the videos for that are just like the one that you're about to watch. And if not, guys, if you're not a member over at scotsbassessons.com, go check it out. You can grab a 14-day free trial. I'll put the link below. And also remember, guys, we've got a podcast. And this interview is on the podcast as well. You can't watch the video on the podcast, obviously, but you can listen to all the interviews. And as I said, there's over 70 of them. I hope that's right. Around 70 anyway. Anyway, guys, take it easy. I'll see you on the beach. Goodbye. Hey guys, how's it going? Scotty again here from Scott's Bass Sessions, and we're here with the mighty, the one and only Victor Wooten. He's been cool enough to come down to the Towers and hang out. He's playing at Brudenell Social Club, which is just down the road. Luckily, it's literally 8 minutes from this place. We just checked out on the map before. But anyway, Victor, just thank you so much for coming and hanging out and
Thanks
just
for having me.
sharing the knowledge bombs. I'm expecting some serious knowledge, but don't let us down, man. But yeah, like, what brings you to Leeds in the first place? What are you doing right now? Let's talk about that.
Music.
Yeah.
You know, I want to play everywhere and anywhere I can. And fortunately, you know, with the management and booking agents and someone here all agreed to let us play somewhere.
Have you been? Cause how many gigs have you done in the UK?
This is probably the 5th. I know we did a couple nights in Brighton.
Yeah.
No, in Bristol.
Brighton's tomorrow.
Brighton's tomorrow. We did a couple in Bristol. We did London, and we did. Where are we today? Today's Leeds. So we did Manchester also.
Yeah, and you've just come over from Spain as well, haven't you?
In Spain and in Paris, yeah.
Yeah. So How many gigs is that in total over the tour?
I don't even know.
A lot.
I mean, it's good. It's only about a 2-week tour, so it's not too bad.
Yeah, because I suppose a lot of the guys, when they see, you know, most people that have been watching this would probably have experienced your bass playing through YouTube, right? You know, and they probably wonder what your life is like, you know, sort of like day to day, sort of like gigging and things like that. You know, like how do you talk about how you actually get to come on a tour in the UK and Europe and things like that? What do you need in place to actually do that?
Well,
and to do that, is it generally to promote an album or something like that?
It could be.
Yeah.
I guess it could actually be easier if you have a product, because then people are interested in it. But right now, I don't have a new product.
Yeah.
You know, people like Marcus or Stanley, you know, my heroes, they just have a following. So, or Mike Stern, let's say. They can just go and play and people will show up. So I'm just trying to follow suit. Yeah. I don't put out records every year. You know, so if I only came when I put out a record, it would be too long. Yeah. But as we were just kind of talking off camera, the industry has changed so much that a lot of us musicians now we don't sell records, so we have to do something to maintain ourselves as musicians.
Which is where touring comes into play, right?
Big time where touring comes into play, especially if we're considered jazz musicians. That usually means our audiences are small. The pay is smaller than like a popular pop act. Yeah. So we have to tour a lot.
When did you start touring? In fact, when did you pick up the bass?
My brother Regi, who's playing guitar with me tonight, started me when I was very, very young, 1 or 2 years old.
Yeah. 1 or 2?
Yeah. I mean, literally. Yeah. And it's because I'm the youngest of the 5 boys.
Yeah.
And they needed a bass player. Yeah. Literally. And that became me. So my first tour, I think Regi said I turned 6 years old on the tour. In the west coast of the United States, we were opening for Curtis Mayfield, a great soul singer.
Really? Wow.
I think it was his Superfly tour.
Yeah.
And we were the opening act. And so I've just done it my whole life. Yeah.
Can you remember a time when you didn't play an instrument?
No.
It's just felt like you've always played an instrument.
Right.
And do you play other instruments?
I do. Not well. But, a string works the same way on any instrument. So, you can figure out any stringed instrument, whether it's a harp, a violin, or anything else, or a guitar. But I play cello fairly well, drums fairly well, a little bit of guitar. I know how the piano works, but I can't really play it.
Yeah. And do you think that was to do with the way you were brought up? With all your brothers playing, were you just kind of swapping, what's that? Show me that.
It was mainly because I didn't need to learn those instruments. I learned those instruments kind of later.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, why did I need to play piano? I was living with one of the best in the world. Or guitar or sax or drums.
Yeah.
I had it all there. So I never really learned. But, what I would do is I would learn their approaches and their mentalities and apply it to the bass.
Their thought process around what they were playing.
Exactly. Or even drum rudiments. Like, I think a lot of young boys like to beat on things. You want to play the drums.
Absolutely.
And that's natural, but we already have
I still want to do that.
Yeah, exactly. Me too. So I just learned how to play the drums on the bass, and which is why my style is very rhythmic. And when I was very, very young, when Jaco Pastorius really made it popular to learn horn lines, and Donna Lee and Bird and things like that, I was learning drum solos on the bass. Yeah. Learning Billy Cobb and Tony Williams licks and transcribing their solos, but figuring out how to play it.
And how old were you at this point?
I don't know, 9, 10, something like that.
So where was the influence? Like Billy Cobham? Where were these names?
My brothers.
Was it your brothers that were just saying, listen to this, listen to this?
They didn't have to ask.
And where did they get it from? Is that from your parents?
That's a better question. That's who you need to be really interviewing.
Yeah.
My story is pretty easy. I had 4 great teachers. But like when Regi was teaching me at 2 to play the bass, he was also teaching Brother Joseph at 5 to play piano. Yeah. So if I was 2, Regi was only 10.
Yeah.
He's the oldest.
Oh, really?
And we're only 8 years apart from oldest to youngest. So the real story is there.
Yeah.
How did he learn? How did he know to teach me well enough to be on tour at 6?
Yeah.
And Joseph to play the keys. And then Roy was playing drums and Rudy, and they're all very close in age, so they were starting together. But that's the real story. Anyone born in my position would be good. You have no choice but to be good. But how they learn.
Were your parents musicians?
Not musicians, no, but musical, yes.
Right. Okay.
And so they supported us. They would sing a lot around the house. They'd play records. They would different styles of music. They would take us to concerts. I remember being in the 1st and 2nd grade going to see James Brown live. And
so
those are
super
concerts
supportive.
I'll never forget. Totally supportive. And then, their brothers and sisters were also very musical. And I can remember one of my aunts, my Aunt Ann Lois, she would say, "Oh, you got to listen to this, Victor. This is Willie Weeks playing with Donny Hathaway. The records, everything is everything, Donny Hathaway live. You got to hear this bass solo." And they would just turn us on to things.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it really is amazing. But back then, it was just what it was.
Yeah, when you're in it, you don't realize it.
You don't realize how amazing it is. I don't realize how amazing the opportunities that us brothers had as a kid, the things we got to do because we could play music. I see it now because I have kids that age.
And did touring and music ever take you out of school, or did you actually?
Oh yeah,
it did.
Yeah. We'd have to miss school.
Yeah,
we have to miss sporting events, because we played sports in school and things like that. So I had to miss school, and I missed a lot. Just sometimes playing with friends. I can remember looking out the window, see my friends playing in the street, but I've got to learn this song because we have a wedding coming up. That the bride wants this song, and Regi's got to teach me. And I'm 6 years old, 7 years old, and crying. Regi's like, "Don't worry, I know it's hard now, but you'll get it." Regi's the best teacher.
Well, he's got like I was talking to Evan Brewer, and he was saying that he's got like Regi the teacher. Like people call him the teacher.
Yeah, Evan's one of the guys that came through the Regi Wooten
Like he's a legendary teacher, right?
Man.
And you had him as a brother.
Yeah.
So it's
there's so many people that Regi has touched musically.
Where do you think he got that side of his personality from?
That's a very good question. I'm telling you, that's the better story. You know, I mean, I'm the most known of the brothers.
Yeah.
But my path was kind of set for me, and it's very easy. And growing up, a kid, I don't know any kid that likes to practice, and I was one. Yeah. You know, kids like to do it. They want to play, not practice playing. Yeah, no kid wants to practice video games. They want to play, you know. And so music was that way for me. So I've never enjoyed practice. But put someone in my position with the brothers I had who really worked on it and liked to practice. Yeah.
And you were the youngest, I suppose, as well. So that it's like that heavy influence coming down from them all the time.
So yeah, add practice onto that. And it would people would be easily like 4 times as good as I am.
When you were practicing, what kind of things were you practicing? Obviously, you've mentioned like transcription and working out.
Yeah.
Drum stuff.
I look at it. I'll answer that question, but I really look at it like, let's say I want to learn to speak English, and I admire you because you speak so well. And I say, wow, when you were growing up, what did you practice? You know?
Speaking it.
You did it.
Yeah.
You just spoke, and you were never not allowed to participate. No one made you practice. No one said you have to learn these words first. You got to say your ABCs or your scales over and over. No one ever did that.
Yeah.
You've maintained your freedom. And that's why you have your own voice. Music has been identical for me. I was learning it at the same time as I was learning to speak. And in the same way, through freedom, not through a regimen of practice.
Yeah.
So practice is not my mentality. Playing is. But a lot of people hear me say that and they think I'm saying don't practice. I'm not saying that.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that wasn't a part of what I did a lot.
You played all the time.
I had the opportunity to play all the time.
Yeah. Because your 4 older brothers were playing all the time.
Yeah. And parents were getting us gigs.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but when I would work on things, I would get excited about certain things. Like when I heard Jocko, one of the first things, a great drummer named Billy Drummond. Billy Drummond lives in New York now, but he was a neighbor. And he played Portrait of Tracy.
Yeah. And how old are you at this point when you first heard that?
I don't know what year that was when that record came out. Jocko's first record.
76, I think.
70, so I was in the 6th grade.
Or 78.
Whatever it was. Yeah. If it was 76, I was in the 6th grade, which would have made me 11.
Yeah.
So 78, I would have been in the 8th grade, whatever.
Yeah.
I heard it, and because I was young, I didn't have the mentality of, wow, that's hard, I can't do that. My mentality is, if he can do it, I'm going to learn that.
Yeah.
But my mentality was, because I don't like to practice, right? My mentality is, I'm going to learn it tonight. And so there's about 3 instances that I can still recall. Portrait of Tracy was one, where I didn't sleep till I learned it, the whole song.
You were just like,
I just stayed up and learned that song. And that was my introduction. That was my whole practice of harmonics.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I was showing a girl just a few days ago in, where was it, Madrid, how to play harmonics on the bass. And it was very difficult, and she was just complaining, I'll never get it. I just never had that mentality. I'm I'm going to learn it tonight.
Yeah.
And it took me a long time. But after I learned that song, I knew so much about Jocko.
Yeah.
Because he there's a lot of patterns that he repeats in that song. So I learned a lot about Jocko. I learned a lot about harmonics, and I was just better. So I call that concentrated practice.
Yeah.
Not so much that I'm concentrating, but like when you have orange juice concentrate. You add a little water and you get a lot.
Yeah.
That was the kind of practice.
So really digging in and just, and I suppose like if you're talking about like music being a language, you're learning what he said. You know,
Absolutely.
You're studying the way he spoke, and then you're getting that into your own
playing, right? Absolutely. And when you approach it that way, it's not as difficult. Like if I wanted to learn a speech, one of my favorite speakers is Dr. Martin Luther King. If I wanted to learn his speech, I wouldn't say, oh, wow, this is going to be hard, man. How does he do that? You would listen and you'd repeat it.
Yeah.
You know, you may not even know what the words mean, but you can repeat it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I've just treated music that same way. And there have been a few things. I did the same thing with Stanley Jordan. That's how I learned to tap.
Is that from Stanley Jordan? Yeah.
In a night. I heard Stanley Jordan. I'm like, that's one guy? So I got my brother's guitar. I found out from reading the record that Stanley tuned in all fourths. I tuned my brother's guitar in all fourths, and I say one night, and when I say one night, it's a long night. You know what I mean? I mean, it's, the sun is up.
Yeah.
But
it's
the thing
still going.
I just don't sleep
Yeah,
until I
yeah.
get it. And I learned one of his songs. And that's pretty much the most I've ever practiced tapping. The rest has been doing it.
More doing it and then using it as like compositionally, coming up with great things.
Coming up with things to do. So I'm not great at tapping. I'm not. I'm really not. Stanley Jordan is. I'm not. People think I am because I use what I have well in a musical way. Yeah. But I can't run lines and solo like Stanley Jordan. He's like a piano player.
Yeah, he's all over the place, isn't he? Yeah,
so my ability is limited, but I just use my limits to their fullest.
Yeah.
And so I would do that with drum solos. Billy Cobb and my brothers were listening to Mahavishnu Orchestra with John McLaughlin. I just love the power and the fast and, of Billy Cobb. And I wanted my bass to sound like that. And I had been studying Larry Graham. Yeah. And so I was learning how to do the thumbing and plucking. And so that gave me the power, but not the speed.
Oh, yeah.
So when Regi showed me how to use my thumb in both directions, that just opened up a whole new world. My mind kicked in.
So did that come from Regi? The up and down? Yeah. The double thumb.
Yeah. And at the time, there was no name for it. We were just using the thumb like you use a pick.
Yeah, because you were the first guy that I really saw doing that. And I was like, hey, what is he doing?
Yeah, I mean, but if a guitarist sees it, it's no big deal. Because guitarists, if they don't have a pick, they'll use their thumb. Jazz guitarists did it all the time.
Yeah, Django.
So for a guitarist, it's nothing new. For a bassist, it's new, so it must be hard. And Victor Wooten's the only guy who can do it. Yeah. We never thought that way. For me, and fortunately my kids, if I see you do it, I'm halfway there.
Got it, yeah. Knowing that it can be done is half the battle.
That's it. And having an example to see.
Yeah.
Right? One way is having to create it, but when I can see you doing it, I'm halfway there. And if you look at YouTube, you'll see young kids. There's young kids now, 8 years old, playing.
Oh, it's crazy.
More stuff than I can play
because they
now.
can see people doing it.
Because the whole world is at your fingertips.
Yeah.
Right? Now we just have to make it musical, and these people need experience. And there's a whole lot of musicality that needs to be added to the technique, things like that, and music, what I call musical wisdom. Yeah. When to use what you have and when not to. Yeah. Things like that. But ability, can quickly be attained by the younger person with an open mind.
Were you like transcribing or working out like the guys like Stanley?
Absolutely.
And which of the guys sort of like jump to mind when you think about that?
Well, I mentioned Willie Weeks. That was the first bass solo I can ever remember learning. Yeah. And that was turned on to us by my aunt. But Stanley was kind of like my really number one guy. Yeah. I learned everything from Stanley. Yeah. But I sound like me.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
I can't sound like Stanley, but I think you can, and I hope you can hear the influence. Of Stanley. Yeah. I mean, he's just, is my hero. I met him when I was 9. Wow. And I still feel 9 whenever I'm around him. But he was so nice to me that it just stuck with me from that day in Hampton, Virginia. It just stuck with me how kind he was. And so, when you things in your childhood, big moments like that just stick with you, good or bad. And that was a great one. And so Stanley, I learned a lot of Marcus. I learned a lot of Bootsy. I didn't know who he was at the time, but I was learning Jamerson's lines. Yeah. I was learning all that Motown and, anything that was popular in the late 60s and 70s when I was growing up. Yeah. Back in the time where pop music was not a style of music, it just meant popular. Yeah, absolutely. So growing up, we had jazz radio stations, we had classical, we had country, R&B, but we had pop stations. And the pop stations just played what was popular from all the styles. Yeah. Now we think of pop as a watered down
as a style.
I'm a pop artist. Yeah. Pop really in the original was just short for popular. Yeah. And if you were popular, you might be considered a pop artist. So listening to a pop station, you'd hear everything. Yeah. Beatles, Led Zeppelin, Jefferson Starship, Larry Graham, Sly Stone, Earth, Wind and Fire. You'd hear it all.
Hear it all, yeah.
And so we were influenced by it all. But right around the time of fusion started to happen, when Miles started doing some electronic things, and then Mahavishnu, and then Weather Report, and Return to Forever. When my brothers got into that, I, of course, followed suit and got into that too.
And when did, when you're transcribing these guys' lines and learning their language and learning how to apply that to the bass, when did you start understanding that from like a musical harmonic perspective? Like, oh, this is a root note, this is a fifth, this is a third, this is a second, that kind of thing.
I don't know.
Because for me, it was very, I learned to emulate before I actually started understanding.
Absolutely, and that's the way to do it.
Yeah.
A child learns to talk before they spell.
Yeah.
You don't know it's a noun,
Yeah.
And the child learns to say the words they need first, the most. They'll learn milk, mama, dada, more.
Yeah.
Right? But in music, the teacher says this is what you have to learn first. Right? And in a lot of cases, we want you to understand it before you can play.
Yeah.
Which is a slower process. It's boring, and most people quit.
Absolutely.
Right? Rather than letting the student play what they like.
Yeah. First. Getting into the music for music.
Let's learn what it is later. So what I hear you saying to me is the proper order. Let's just play. Yeah. And that's what I did. I just played. But my brother Regi was smart. Again, I'm telling you, that's the story. Because, like, for example, learning modes.
Yeah.
I can never remember learning all the modes from Regi, but I learned the ones we used.
Yeah.
What I now know as Dorian was James Brown.
Right, I got you. Yeah.
That's Sex Machine.
Yeah.
You know? And so now when you listen to songs like Uptown Funk or Prince, a lot of the stuff Prince did, I know it now as a Dorian mode, but for us it was just a funky minor key.
It was a sound.
Yeah. A lot of times, like what we call Aeolian, my brother Joseph always explains it as a sad minor.
Yeah.
Right? It sounds kind of sad, but as soon as you put that major sixth in it,
it's got that uplifting vibe about it.
And so now he calls it happy minor.
Yeah.
Or better yet, he calls it funky minor.
Yeah.
And that's what the funk songs are in.
Yeah.
You know? And so I knew Dorian before I knew it was called Dorian. I just knew if we're going to play James Brown, here's the scale.
That's the shape.
That's the shape, absolutely.
And were you visually orientated when you learned the bass?
Yeah, visually, totally.
Yeah.
Totally. And I still am. I still use shapes. I actually, this is weird. I do a camp in Tennessee that we call the Spirit of Music.
Yeah.
Because I love that stuff. I love dreams, visualizing, just weird stuff.
Yeah.
And the students do also. So we created a camp, and I share a story because when I was really little, and it had to have been after I met Stanley Clarke. I don't remember the chronological order, but I had a dream that I met Stanley Clarke, and he showed me a pattern in the dream that I still use today.
Really?
And absolutely, and it works. And he showed me how to use it in any key, and it's very, very simple. But I realized as I got older and started learning real theory, that if I were to change one note, it would be a minor pentatonic scale. Which is when Stanley was running these fast lines in his early days, just these real fast, he's running minor pentatonic scales.
Yeah.
You know, so, through a dream, I got a really good insight into how
his shape,
his sound. And it's just a shape, So anyway, that's a long answer to I use a lot of shapes. Because our instrument, the bass, is so symmetrical.
Yeah, it's made for it, isn't it?
It's made for it, and that's a blessing and a curse.
Yeah, because you can sort of like run before you walk in certain ways, I suppose.
Well, changing keys just.
Yeah.
And I got a
pianist,
the
sax player is like, oh.
Exactly. For us, it's a piece of cake. But that causes us also not to know the notes on our instrument.
Yeah.
We don't read that well, but we can play.
How did you learn the notes on the instrument? Was there ever a time where you thought, I need to learn the notes?
There probably was, but I don't remember it. But when I got into sixth grade, and living in Virginia, the sixth grade, so I was 11 or so.
Yeah.
That was when they allowed students to start learning musical instruments.
Yeah.
I wanted to play double bass, but growing up in nightclubs, I only saw the big double basses, and I was always too short. I didn't know they made them small. So the blessing in disguise, the hidden blessing was I chose cello.
Right, okay.
in the orchestra. There was no place to play electric bass in the 6th grade, so I chose cello. I learned to read very well, right? It was bass clef. It was the same notes that were on the bass.
Yeah.
So I was learning to read it here and here. But the cello parts in the orchestra are always much better than the double bass parts. The double bass, you're just counting rest. Then you get to pluck a note, and then you rest again.
Yeah.
But the cello's playing beautiful melodies. So I learned that part of music.
Yeah.
How to really make a note sing and things like that, where a lot of us bass players play a long time, and some of us never get that.
Yeah.
We get the rhythmic aspect of it.
But the nuances of the actual dynamic of playing melodies and stuff.
And how to like sustain a note. You know, and really just make that note sing. So I got that early on. And now I was learning how to read the music. And I guess some kind of way Regi had already shown me where the notes were on the instrument. But I translated that over to the bass.
That's really what sort of kick-started learning the fretboard.
Exactly.
From a note perspective. I suppose learning it from a pattern perspective is different.
Pattern and sound. This sounds here and it's somewhere here too, you know.
Yeah. Where did the whole solo bass thing come from? In terms of you doing gigs on your own?
Probably the mixture of Jocko and Stanley Jordan.
Right.
Yeah. I think Stanley Jordan had recorded a version of Stevie Wonder's Overjoyed.
Yeah.
And I came up with my own. It's just a beautiful song. And so that was one of the first arrangements I can ever remember really coming up with. That was kind of elaborate.
Yeah.
Was Overjoyed. And I'm sure that was a Stanley Jordan influence because he did a whole record that way.
Yeah. And,
so
did you take it out gigging straight away? When did you start gigging?
Not really gigging like that. That didn't happen until I moved to Nashville, Tennessee at the end of '88. So now I'm on my own. I've been living at home with my parents my whole life.
Yeah.
And so I'm finally on my own, and I have to pay rent. Like, what is that? oh, that's what mom and dad have been doing all this time. So I needed extra money.
Yeah.
And in Nashville, there was a great healthy restaurant that I used to like to go to. And I noticed that a few times a week, they'd have a guitarist playing there. And he'd get tips, I could do that. So I went to the owners and I said, can I play here? They said, what do you play? I said, guitar. And they said, okay, that's not a complete lie. Right? So he said, well, bring your guitar and come play for us. So I showed up with the bass and
Did they clock it or not? Did they spot it?
They were like, what? But when I played, and I had worked up just a few things, Overjoyed and some harmonics, Portrait of Tracy and things like that.
So they were into it?
They were totally into it. And so I was also just getting into looping pedals.
Yeah.
So it was either a Tuesday or Thursday, I started playing dinner music at this health food restaurant, and it turned into an event.
Oh, really?
Every Tuesday or whatever it was an event at this restaurant.
Yeah.
It was amazing how you can make an opportunity out of anything.
Yeah.
But through that, I met great musicians. Because what happened, if any musician was in town on that night, they would say, you have to go to this restaurant.
Yeah.
So I met Michael Brecker, sax player, great duo Tuck and Patty, James Taylor.
Wow, they're all going down to that restaurant,
Yeah, and so it was nice. I made some connections. It was also at the very beginning of Bela Fleck and the Flecktones.
Right,
Starting. So
because that was in '88 as well, wasn't it? Yeah,
exactly. So some nights my brother would show up, he'd bring his drum guitar, and Bela would bring his banjo. So at this health food restaurant, on a small little section, Flecktones would rehearse.
Yeah.
And it was just amazing.
Were you following your brothers to Nashville? Had they moved there?
No, I actually went there first. Yeah.
They followed you,
Yeah, and I hadn't planned on moving there.
What was it like there when you moved there at the time? What was the scene like?
Great musicians.
Yeah.
Great musicians. A heavy studio scene, and a lot of course, country and things like that. And, and this is just my take on it, with the musicians that I was surrounded with. Great musicians, top studio musicians, and they would play on the weekends or play at night. And I got a chance to play in some bands with them. But in my opinion, well, you have to remember, I came from musical freedom. Yeah. We jammed in the garage every day,
Yeah.
every weekend. And all the musicians from Virginia, or even before when we lived in California, if you were a musician, you ended up in our garage. Right? And you know, jams weren't rehearsed.
Yeah.
We just jammed. So when I got into this Nashville bands, that was my mentality.
Yeah.
But I was playing with a lot of studio musicians where everything's perfect.
Yeah.
And if it was perfect this way last night, it's going to be perfect this way tonight.
Yeah.
Not me. You know, I'm slinging my bass around my neck. I'm slapping as fast
Yeah, because I was going to ask. I was thinking, like, Nashville's obviously like a studio scene. Was that something? Did you move there to get involved in that scene?
No. I just moved there. Well, again, I didn't think I was moving. I went there first to visit a friend of mine named Kurt.
Yeah.
A guy I had met working at an amusement park. And I went to visit him for 4 days, and he was born and raised there, so he knew everybody. So he introduced me to Bela and all the top musicians, studio musicians, a guy named Bob Moore who played bass for Elvis, just all these guys. All of a sudden, I'm meeting these guys. Great double bassist Edgar Meyer.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And I'm in. I got about a 45-minute solo concert by Edgar, just me sitting on the floor, just like, you know.
Yeah, he's fine.
So I jammed with Bela in his living room, just the two of us, in his kitchen rather, just the two of us. I'm hanging with this violinist, Mark O'Connor, just all these top guys.
Yeah.
This one guy whose wife was a singer, her name was Jonelle. She heard a recording demo that I did. I just did a demo while I was there for a guy.
Yeah.
And she heard it and asked me to come back to Nashville and sub in her band for a month.
Oh, really?
And that month has turned into 30 years.
Still there.
Still there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I never planned on moving, but I'm there. And so then, you know, Nashville also, the scene I was in, and I hope this doesn't offend anyone, but the scene I was in, there weren't a lot of black people. So all of a sudden, when I came into this scene, I'm hanging with the top bluegrass musicians.
Yeah.
I'm hanging with these top studio musicians, and I just stood out in all senses of the word. The way I looked, the way I played. But fortunately, people loved it.
They loved it. Yeah.
Loved it. And it kind of became a thing where I was getting asked to do more and more. And I just had
new guy in town kind of thing. Yeah.
The new guy in town. And fortunately, it worked in my favor.
Yeah.
And so Nashville's been very, very good.
And you're still there. Yeah.
I'm still there.
How long have you lived there? 30 years?
Since the end of '88.
Have you ever thought about moving?
Not seriously.
Just love the area.
I have thought about, like, where else would I enjoy living? Yeah. Colorado, Oregon, you know, or something like that. Canada, who knows, you know. But I love it there because it's a musical hub, but it's not too big or too small. I can get to New York easily. And I shared an apartment with my wife in New York, because she's from New York. Yeah. And she's into theater and acting.
Well, did you live in New York at one point?
Yeah. But I still had a place in Nashville. But because her world was there doing theater and things like that, acting and shows. And I didn't want her to just have to leave that. Yeah. So we had a place in both Nashville and New York.
Did you ever think about moving to New York full time?
I didn't like it. Not for living.
Yeah.
I liked being there knowing I'd be gone soon. And that sounds mean, and I don't really mean it that way, even though it is.
I've heard people say so. It's full on, right?
It's just that if I was in New York, that meant I was off.
Yeah.
And I didn't have to work there.
Yeah.
I didn't have to get into that rat race that my wife was into. I mean, lower on the totem pole than musicians, a starving musician is a starving actor.
Right, okay, yeah.
Oh my goodness, what she would have to go through to get a job.
To get into it,
Go stand in line in the rain just to go to an audition where you get to sing 8 bars or 16 bars.
Yeah.
And the parts already filled, they just have to, by union law, have auditions.
Yeah.
You know, and then hopefully you might get a part in a commercial or a touring children's show or whatever. And it's like, you know, musicians, if we don't have a gig, at least we can get together and have a jam session. Yeah. Actors, hey, let's get together and read Shakespeare.
They're not going to get together in a garage and do some Shakespeare. Yeah.
It's so tough. It's so tough. And my wife was having to go through that. But when I was in New York, and plus she had to work a job. If I was in New York, that meant I was off. That meant It was in between tours with the Fleck Tones.
Did you hook up with Federa at that point? Is that where that connection comes from? Is that earlier?
Federa, very much earlier. I was so lucky. I'm telling you, you know, I have good luck or something. But I was doing some recording with my brothers in New York in 1983, and I was in the market for a new bass. This is a short story.
What were you playing beforehand? Because I've never seen you. An Alembic.
Stanley Clarke.
Stanley Clarke, right? Yeah,
Alembic, yeah. But I had a Series 1 Alembic, which is huge.
Are they the ones that are heavier than the Sun?
Oh, man, yes. Yes. And so you can think of the short kid. I got it in 77, so I'm in the 7th grade.
Yeah.
And I've got this Alembic. I still can't even hit a low F. I have to use my thumb over the top.
Yeah, because the necks are so long, aren't they? Yeah.
Stanley plays the small ones.
Has he got a short one?
I mean, he plays the short scale. It looked like a ukulele for him, you know. But I was playing that, and we were doing some studio work. The producer said he didn't like Alembics. He wanted me to play his music, man. I didn't want to play that. So this guitar player that we were working with, a guy named Ira Siegel, great guitarist, he says, I have friends that are making basses. This is in 1983.
Yeah.
And he said, I'll call him. I said, great. Joey Lariscella shows up at the studio with 2 Federa basses. No one knew Federa. No one knew me.
Yeah.
But Joey knew that we were working on, my brothers and I were working on this record deal with Arista, and there was a budget for stuff. And so he knew he'd get paid. He said, just, you like this bass, keep it. Send the money when you want. And this was
really?
Absolutely. This was their first year making basses in 83.
Wow.
All right, and Joey shows up at the studio with basses number 11, basses number 37. Number 11 looked a lot like my Federa. I'm sorry, it looked a lot like my Alembic with a zebra wood top. Yeah. But the number 37 had a lighter flamed maple, and I was like, I want that one.
Yeah.
So since from that day...
Is that the one that I've seen? Was that bass?
You've seen it, because my first, 15 years...
Was on that bass? With the Kayla tremolo? Yeah.
I eventually, about 6 years later, added a Kayla. Yeah. So it was 83, we just met by luck. It was their first year making basses. Joey was so kind.
They picked the right guy.
I guess. And I, me too. I mean, it was just a match made in heaven. The bass, I think, was $900. You know, the Federa Monarch.
Yeah.
Going from this big Alembic to this beautiful feeling bass, it was the feel that got me. Oh, it just feels so good.
And are you a one instrument guy? Are you, because obviously there's some bass players, you see them and they're, different basses and different strings and all that. Are you
I'm more of a one. I want to play what I'm comfortable with. But as I'm playing on tour, I bring a couple different instruments. Yeah. And at home I have a bunch, because on this song I want this sound. Yeah. I make sure at home I have a bass that's heavier gauge strings with higher action, because I actually think that sounds better. Yeah. And I play all my bass lines on that bass. So
you use a different bass from the solo bass stuff.
Absolutely. Yeah, and if I'm going to play every night, I don't want to work hard. It's hard for me to play the heavier gauge, and I don't want to do that.
And do you do that? Do you bring the heavier gauge with you, or it's the lighter gauge?
It's the lighter. Yeah.
Would you say it affects the tone?
Absolutely.
Have heavier.
For me, it actually sounds better.
Heavier gauge.
Oh yeah. But I go for a feel.
Yeah.
I don't want to struggle. And if I feel better, I think I'll play better.
Yeah. Enjoy it a bit more.
Exactly.
Who are you listening to right now?
Man, because I play so much, I don't do a lot of listening when I'm off the road. If I'm off for a while, then I'll listen more. But there are some great bands. I like everything. There's bass players that are playing things I'll never be able to play, like this young kid I've been following since he was young, People Kenya, from Brazil, Michael.
Yeah. Frightening.
Just unbelievable. I mean, since
how old is he now? He's about. The YouTube videos, he's 80. He's 80.
He may be 20 now, but he's just phenomenal.
Yeah.
But I also like bass players like the band Snarky Puppy.
Michael League. Yeah, fantastic. Yeah.
Just solid bass player. People like Michael. What is his nickname? Last name is like People Kenya, but we call him. I can't even remember at the moment. But I worry about players like that, because players that are known for that.
Yeah.
you'll only get called for that.
For that one thing.
And that's happened to me.
I was going to say, has that happened to you in your career?
Absolutely. So I try to warn other people, you know. People won't call me to play bass lines. They'll call me if they want a fiery solo.
Got it. Yeah.
And I love playing bass lines.
Yeah.
You know. And I know unless things change, that's going to happen to him.
Yeah, because I because I absolutely love I love listening to, like, one of my favorite albums, like you do. You know, you've obviously got like serious chops on it, but it was the album that you did, the trio album with Steve Smith and Scott Henderson.
Yeah.
You know, that's one of my favorite albums that you played on. I absolutely loved it because there was the chops, but there was just some killing bass playing on there as well. You know.
Thank you. Well, I mean, that's what I do. Even though I solo a lot, if you really listen to it, 90% of it, even with bass effect and the flex tones, 90% of the time I'm playing bass lines.
It's bass lines, isn't it? Yeah.
But people pay attention to the soloing, you know, which I don't mind that. But it ends up causing people like me to not get called for bass playing
for bass gigs, right? Yeah,
gigs, recordings, or whatever.
Yeah.
So I'm always so excited when I finally get called to play the bass. You know? I got called.
What do you want me to do? Root and fifth all night.
Yeah, I got a recording session from a well-known, like, you know, kind of, I don't know, describe him, just a kind of popular artist from the 70s and 80s. I got a phone call to do a session because he was looking for a specific thing. And I asked the guy on the phone, I was like, what does he want, a solo? He's like, no solo. I was like, really? You know? It's the same thing with this great singer I like, a woman named India Ari.
Oh, yeah.
I got called to do a song for her.
Oh, really? Wicked.
And the producer just wanted the connection between this drummer and me.
Right, okay, yeah.
I was like, and I knew this producer. I was like, no solo? No solo. Yes.
Yeah. Just bass.
Yes. You know, I love it. I mean, that's how I grew up. But when the Flecktones hit, I became known as the soloist.
Yeah.
You know, because all of a sudden now I had a worldwide audience.
Yeah.
I was in Bass Player magazine 3 years straight on the back cover with this company. And I became known for that. And there's a blessing and a curse. I have a career because of it.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of opportunities I don't get because of it.
Yeah.
So I like to just send that out to all of us chopsters.
Yeah.
That even more than we show the chops, we need to show that we can play bass.
Yeah.
That we can support, that we can listen, that we know how to play behind a singer. We need to know how to do that. So I love players like, you know, like listening to Pino Palladino, you know, and some of these newer guys that are doing the work now that some of the older guys like Bob Babbitt and Chuck Rainey and Jamerson. There's a whole newer batch of people, Lee Sklar and Pino and their guys and Daryl Jones and Marcus. It's people that everybody wants. Like Marcus. Marcus has more chops than most of us get to see.
Really?
But he's smart about it. He's smart about it. Marcus will take a solo and it's built around the bass line.
Yeah.
And he'll get fancy a little bit, you know.
But he's aware.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah, he's smart about it.
Because you've been on tour with Marcus and Stanley, didn't you? You did the trio thing, didn't you? Yeah.
What a treat.
Man, was that strange when you actually initially hooked up?
Yeah.
And was it one of you guys that initiated it, or was it a sort of like an outside force that thought you guys needed to hook up?
It was the outside force that finally solidified it.
Yeah.
But I had been dropping these hints with Marcus and Stanley. Because when I saw Paco de Lucia, John McLaughlin, and Al Di Meola do that trio, I was like, I want to do that with bass players.
Yeah.
Who would I want to do it with? Stanley and Marcus.
Yeah.
So as my name started to grow to where we started to know each other, and usually I would only see them at the NAMM show or something like that. Or if they came to now where I was living, Nashville, I would go see them.
Yeah.
But every time I would mention to Marcus, Stanley, you and me and Stanley should do something.
Yeah.
You know, and okay, sure, yeah, we should. I'd see Stanley, Marcus, you and me, we should do something. Okay. You know, that would happen a lot. But it wasn't until Bass Player magazine in the U.S. was going to give Stanley a Lifetime Achievement Award.
Yeah.
And for some reason, they asked Marcus and me to present the award to him.
And that's when it
when it happened. We got on stage and played School Days.
Oh, right,
Stanley asked us to play School Days with him. And during sound check, without rehearsal, we just started playing it, and it was like perfect.
Yeah.
because those guys are such musicians. You know, if Stanley's up here, Marcus goes down here, I find the middle.
Yeah, yeah.
But if Marcus comes up here, I'll drop. And Stanley, you know.
Yeah, everybody's thinking the same.
And it was like, wow,
yeah.
This is no work. So in the interview, once that magazine came out, I'm reading the article and Stanley's saying, oh yeah, you know, we're going to be doing this recording and then we're going to tour. And I'm like, really? You know, he's laying out this whole plan of what we're going to do with Stanley and Marcus and me. I called him. I said, are you really?
Is this happening? Yeah.
Like, yeah, let's do it. So we started.
And that was that. Yeah. Before I let you go, you've got to talk about your bass camps.
Sure.
Because I'm super interested. It sounds. I like camping. I like bass. I'm there. How did the idea kick off, and what are you doing with it now?
Sure. I'll keep this short if I can. When I moved to Nashville, a good friend who became a good friend is a violinist named Mark O'Connor. This guy's amazing. Plays incredible violin, mandolin, guitar. He held a world record in skateboarding at one point.
What?
And we just hit it off. And we actually did 2 shows outdoors where we're all on wirelesses on skateboards. The whole show.
Well, you do skateboard too?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm a
That's why we hit it off. But I'm playing bass with wireless microphone. He's on violin. And my friend Michael from, I wrote a book called The Music Lesson.
Yeah.
And there's a teacher in there named Michael. Well, that guy plays cello.
Yeah.
And he's wireless cello and we're all skateboarding. And just crazy stuff. So anyway, Mark was running what he called fiddle camps, violin camps.
Yeah.
And they'd go out into the park, you know, and there'd be violinists everywhere. And I'd visit his camp and think, this is the coolest thing.
Yeah.
There's a group of violinists sitting under a tree. There's another group over here. And then there'd be concerts. And sometimes he'd have me come and play and things like that. And I thought, man, I want to do that.
Yeah.
But so I combined that idea with when I started learning nature skills, all the skills our ancestors had to know to survive.
Yeah.
How to build houses, how to start fires, all the things that we can, you know, we do easily now.
Yeah.
How to plant gardens. They had to know what the birds were saying. They had to be able to read the weather.
Yeah.
All that stuff, you know. I started learning about that in the end of '91. And I learned from a man named Tom Brown Jr. And when I took the first class with him, I'm sitting there listening to him talk. And in my head, I'm thinking, he's calling it nature, but he's teaching music.
Yeah.
And I said, because the process was so natural.
Yeah.
And I said, this is how I learn. It wasn't like, okay, here's some skills, go practice. He said, okay, now let's go do it.
Yeah.
You know, and it was a lot about feeling. When we're looking at tracks on the ground, animals, where they walk through the woods.
Yeah.
Of course, there were some things to look for, but he would say, what's that track feel like? It was about feelings, you know?
Yeah.
And a lot of the times in music, as we're teaching it, feeling never comes in.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is what it is.
Yeah.
You know, no, it's not a feeling, it's a mode, it's this scale, you know? Yeah. But the kid came to you because he felt something. And when we don't nourish that feeling, the kid leaves.
Yeah.
That's where our students leave. But I was thinking, not only is he teaching music, this is the way music should be taught.
Yeah.
So taking lessons from him and Mark O'Connor's violin camp.
Yeah. You just
put them together.
Put the two together.
And I called it a bass/nature camp.
Yeah.
But I didn't want to do it in the normal way that people were teaching. Not that it was bad. I'm not talking bad about any teacher. I think they're all good. Maybe some are better than the others. But I felt that the way I was taught and the way we all learn to speak is a more natural process.
Yeah.
And so if I could combine, I also felt that a lot of the things that people were teaching musically, the good stuff was being left out.
Got you. Yeah.
Because like literally when you buy your bass, you buy the notes that all the other bass players.
Yeah.
But when I learned those notes, I still don't sound like Jocko.
Yeah.
So there has to be something else.
Yeah.
That's the something else that I'm interested in.
Yeah.
All right. So I wanted to add a more natural process to the process of learning music.
Yeah.
So I literally looked in a dictionary. The word natural means to be like nature. So if we're trying to become natural when we play, we should be like nature.
Yeah.
Like a bird doesn't have to go to a conservatory and pay money to learn to sing. A beaver or a squirrel is just born with the knowledge and the ability to build a nest or to chew down a tree.
Yeah.
They don't have to practice.
Yeah.
They just have it. Well, we're part of that too, and we have natural ability, and we teach it ourselves right out of it.
Yeah.
So I wanted to bring that natural process back and nourish it a week at a time.
Yeah.
But in the dictionary, under the word natural, it also says without sharps or without flats. Right? That's music. So even the dictionary makes the relationship between
nature and music. Yeah.
So once I saw that, I said, we're doing it.
Wow. You know? And when did you start your first one?
2000.
2000. And yeah.
So this is our 17th.
And you were saying that you're doing 5 this year, right?
Only 5 this year. Yeah, we're doing 3. We're 2 at the last 2 weeks of October.
Yeah.
We'll do a week long, the 18th through the 24th of, I said October, July. That's my mind getting old, right? July 18th through 24 is a all bass player camp.
Yeah.
July 25 through 31 is a rhythm section camp.
Okay, so you split them up into sort of like bass and then rhythm sections, yeah.
Absolutely. And then August 1 through 7 is any instrument. We call our music nature camp for any instrument, but we're going to focus on writing, arranging, and performing.
Got you.
So we'll bring in writers, we'll bring in arrangers, and then we'll look at how we perform it and end with a big performance.
Oh man, sounds amazing. If people want to find it, where do they go?
They can go to either victorwooten.com and click on the camp link, or if you want to go directly to the camp website, it's vixcamps.com. And it's VIX.
Okay, vixcamps.com.
VIXCAMPS. Vixcamps.com will take you right there. And the registration's open. There's camps that people can still get into right now.
Do it. And for all the live guys, we're streaming this live as well, guys. How many have we got on?
We're down to 809, but it's been over 1,000.
Been over 1,000, there we go.
Well,
Anyway, Vic, thank you so much. Vic,
Thank you, Scott.
listen to me.
That's it, man.
Listen to me like I'm like, it's like, I'm in the family, isn't it?
I like it. You are. We're
Honestly,
in the music
man,
family.
thank you so much for coming and hanging out
appreciate
today. Thanks for listening, guys. Bye.
Thank you.
Whoa, 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 where are you going? If you haven't subscribed to the Scott's Bass Lessons channel yet here on YouTube, click the link, subscribe. I release 2 videos like this every single week. You can also check out our other videos over there. And if you've not checked out scottsbasslessons.com membership, check it out. You can grab your 14-day free trial over there.